course's information and send that out, or send it to Tony for inclusion in the bulletin and on the website. So if you're interested in linking to a website to purchase the book, or better yet, to visit our local library and borrow it from there, you can do so. I'm up last today, and I'm going to be talking about this book called The Spark. And I'm going to talk a little bit at first about something called synchronicity. If you're not familiar with the term, it's actually, I wasn't familiar that it had been coined so long ago by Carl Jung, the psychiatrist. But synchronicity is, you could call it something that seems more than coincidence. Two or more events that are meaningfully related, but that shouldn't have any causality between them. And I'm a big believer in that in my life. And this book doesn't talk about that per se, but it was an example of it in my life. Back in August, my business partner Tom sent me an email, and it just had a YouTube link in it. And if you've ever seen one, you know it doesn't always say much about what the video it is. It's just the URL. There's a string of characters at the end that talks about that tells what the video ID is. And you know, we send videos and jokes and stuff back and forth all the time, so I didn't really get around to it. I thought I'll look at it later. In September, I actually did get around to it, and I clicked the link, and I saw came up, and it was a TEDx talk. And now TEDx are independently put on TED Expos. TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. They're an organization that sponsors thinking, really. And you might have seen their TED talk in one or more of your adventures. So I'm watching this video, and a teen boy with a mop of wavy hair walks onto the stage and introduces himself as Jacob Barnett. And he immediately implores the crowd of teenagers who are in the auditorium to, with a nervous chuckle, to forget everything they know right now. And as he works his way up to the thesis of his talk, which is that you need to stop learning and start thinking, I got the impression that he was trying really hard to contain his galloping speech and his nervous mannerisms and almost frenetic movements. And he talked about breakthroughs in scientific discovery, and that the people behind them, when they made these discoveries, were often at a period in their life where they were at a personal crossroads. They had been prevented by something, whether it was the plague or war, prevented from attending their educational institutions or practicing a vocation, and instead just given a lot of time to think. And about 5.5 minutes in, Jacob lets us in on the secret that at age 2 he was diagnosed with autism. At first it was Asperger's syndrome, and then he stopped talking altogether. And he didn't talk for a period of 18 months. And his parents were told at that point that he may never talk, and he wouldn't likely tie his shoes. And at preschool, he wasn't finger painting, he wasn't participating in story time, no social interaction with any of the kids or his parents. They had never heard the words "I love you" out of his mouth. All the while, though, Jacob was teaching himself advanced mathematics and astrophysics. And he goes on to tell about his own circumstances of all this opportunity for time to think instead of time to learn, because his mom made the bold move of pulling him out of special education when he was in early year school, and let him focus his energies and his time on what everyone else thought was his disordered patterns of behavior and of thinking. And in the spring of 2011, just shy of 13 years of age, Jacob got a lot of press, or his mom did, for publicizing a theory Jacob had been working on in his bedroom with whiteboard markers all over the windows of his bedroom. He had developed an original theory in physics that actually disproves Einstein's theory of relativity at age 12. And he was getting a lot of press for it, and since that time, those theories have been confirmed by some of the leading physicists in the world. So Jacob talks about this in the video, and you know, the point of it is ultimately is that he's wanting kids to break out of their normal patterns of thought about education, and that it's not about just going into this building and letting your mind get filled up with facts. You've got to think instead of just learning. So, I mean, I just reviewed a video on YouTube. I didn't review a book, so I'll get get to that. But coincidentally, the same month, in September, Maclean's, the current issue of it, had an interview with Jacob Barnett's mother, Kristine Barnett, and it coincided with the release of this book and the next chapter in the life of the Barnetts. Obviously, after this theory is published, renowned universities worldwide are courting Jacob to come study with them. And he ends up at the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics in Waterloo, Ontario. And that was the uber think tank that the boys from RIM set up before they lost all their money. And has been home to Professors Hawking, Neil Turok. These are all physicists. I don't know if they mean much to you. But the most advanced minds in math and science have studied at Perimeter, lectured at Perimeter, and that's where Jacob and his family are. So here it is in September, and coincidentally I get this YouTube video link, and I see this magazine article, and I pass them on to Krista, and she's the library user in the household. I'm the board member, but she's the one who borrows all the books. And she went and found the Spark at the library and brought it home, and she read it, and she said, "You got to read this," but she says that about every book she brings home, and I don't. So, but I had a vested interest in the subject, and I thought to myself, yeah, I do need to read the Spark. I wanted to learn more about Jacob. This is an amazing kid, and just an amazing story. And so I sat down at 10 o'clock one night, and it was a weeknight. I don't know what I was thinking, and I didn't put it down until I was done. It was about 2 in the morning when I turned the last page, and I was just amazed. This story is not about Jacob. Jacob is an amazing young man, but this story is about his mom, Kristine. You know, the courage she had to go against the established way of dealing with children with autism in our education system and medical system was probably the first thing that struck me. She had the intuition and the courage to say, no, you're not expecting the best from my son, and to take him out of that system. He used to walk around with all these alphabet flashcards. His parents would buy him boxes of them because he'd always be losing them. They'd be scattered everywhere. They'd be in every pocket, every nook and cranny in the house. And they'd come into a room, there'd be hundreds of them scattered all over the floor. And the teachers asked Jacob's parents to stop sending Jacob with these cards to school. And Kristine at that point said, well, we're not sending him, he takes them. And the professional across the table, I wasn't sure if it was a psychologist or a teacher, I don't recall, but said, it's not likely he's ever going to learn the alphabet anyways. So he might as well not be doing that. We'd like him to sit in circle at story time. And it was at that moment, it was a turning point for her, and she decided that if that was the level of expectation that they had for her son, he was not in the right place. And so, contrary, I'm sure, to state law, she pulled him out of school. He did not attend school. Instead, she let him invest his time and energies in the things he was passionate about. As weird as it looked and as it seemed, and his behavior improved. He pulled out of that withdrawn state that autistic kids have. And he spoke his first words to his mom and started attending university lectures at the age of 3. And it was just incredible. But like I say, this story wasn't about Jacob, it's about Kristine. She did this with dozens of other autistic kids too, by setting up a daycare in her garage. There were young adolescents and older teens that had been nonverbal their whole lives, and she was able to get them speaking, get them interacting, pull them out of their shell, just by understanding what it was in their world that was so fascinating, and entering their world and nurturing their world to draw them into ours. Meanwhile, you learn through this story that the Barnett family is virtually ruined by the recession in 2008. They were to the point where they were deciding which days of the week they were going to turn the heat on. Kristine herself has had a host of health problems. She had a stroke in her early 30s and was diagnosed with lupus. And their third son had some serious medical problems too. And through it all, you just get to hear this woman's compassion for these children and the fact that and the ingenuity that she employs in making sure that this special daycare she's running out of her garage is helping these kids. And it just blew my mind. was important to me, getting back to synchronicity, is that our daughter Jolie, she's like Jacob in a few ways. She's not normal. Over the last year, we've come to learn she may not be with us long. We don't know for sure. A year ago, she had her first MRI, and since then has had numerous tests of all sorts. And there's something abnormal with how her brain is developing. A year ago, the field of possibilities was wide, and we didn't know much. We're down to knowing that it's either something completely unknown or it's one of about a dozen disorders that is likely fatal. And this book gave me the hope that that unknown is amazing and powerful and inspiring. And so I thank Kristine Barnett for that.